Welcome to the FDT-TV podcast, where we are going to review the World Cup. Was it the best World Cup final we have ever seen? That's yet to be decided. But Mbappe could not pull France to a victory on his own. And as soon as it went to penalties, I think we all knew the Tottenham keeper was going to bottle it, because that's how Tottenham do. But without further ado, it is almost Christmas time, and I'm joined by none other than Mr. Michael Hawes.
We're not going to do anything
How you doing, mate?
Today. We can do everything.
Yeah, good mate. I'm good. Yeah, it was a crazy World Cup final. I think the right team won it for the tournament. But in terms of drama, I don't think you could. I personally, I don't remember a better final for all the years that I've been watching them. But yeah, it was a good one. But more importantly,
we can do everything.
Premier League's back this week.
Yeah, I don't know who's going to say that. I don't know who's going to say that.
We're not going to do
so, just a few housekeeping things before we get going. On the screen, you may see some snow. It is not my dandruff. It is snow before anyone gets into that line of work. But the Premier League is back. The Premier League is back, and because it's back, that means it's time to go over to YouTube, FDT-TV, press the subscribe button. That's what that means, because it's Christmas, and it has been a very cold and wet week. Slippy, snowy, so yeah, let's carry on that theme, shall we? Although it's all melted away now. But yeah, the World Cup, as you said there, you feel like the right team won. They went 2-0 up, conceded 2 in 90 seconds, and then it was all guns blazing from both sides, really. Some exciting football for the last half hour of the actual game, and another half hour after that of extra time. Did you any point think Argentina have thrown it away, and France are just going to keep rolling on and score 4 or 5 before the end?
Yeah, literally, just after their equaliser. I mean, they had a lot of momentum going into the last 20 minutes or so. As you said, they scored 2 in 90 seconds. And it was... I did genuinely think, oh no, is this going to be the letdown for Messi? Because I think for every kind of neutral fan, it's a topic that we've discussed, even on our podcast, who's the better footballer, Messi or Ronaldo. And I think for this, you can't really deny that Messi is one of the greatest, if not the greatest footballer. And we've discussed pros and cons for both. And I think on an individual basis, you could probably argue that Ronaldo is the better player, but from a team aspect, Messi, without a shadow of a doubt, is the better player in terms of his unselfish play. He can score goals, can set up goals. But yes, in answer to your question, I did think they'd thrown it, or could potentially throw it away, because, like you said, I think France were very cagey, even though going 2-0 down.
Yep.
They didn't really seem like they were going to kind of get back into it. From what I saw, Argentina were kind of, I suppose, running away with it, and maybe got a little bit complacent. Or they obviously got complacent because they conceded 2 very quick goals, like back-to-back goals. But overall, I'm glad that Argentina won it from a neutral's perspective. And if anything, just so we can do that stupid face that Mbappe pulled for, after Harry Kane missed the penalty. So I did want to kind of retweet that again yesterday, but wasn't prepared for the backlash off the back of it. So.
Yeah, the whole nation just aiming for it. Now, we as you said, Messi versus Ronaldo, that debate will rumble on for the end of the time. I think who was the better player. I think we been lucky enough to be graced with both of them playing in the same sort of era. But I feel like the next stage of that is already going to be starting, and that's who's better, Mbappe or Haaland. Now, from what I've seen of Haaland, I've seen more of him play. in his time in Germany, and obviously now in the Premier League for Manchester City. But I have to say, Mbappe did impress me last night. Yeah, it was last night. He grabbed that game by the scruff of the neck, which is incredible considering he's still, 22, 23, something 23. Like
that. Yeah.
To be able to do that, I mean, I don't think there's many players who've scored a hat-trick in a World Cup final. And I certainly don't think... I think the last one was Mr. Trevor Brooking, if memory serves me correctly. But I don't think there is any player that scored 3 in a World Cup final and lost. I think that's a statistical anomaly from him. But yeah, do you think that he will ever leave that major contract at PSG and end up in the Premier League at some point? Or do you think if he does, he'll go to Spain? You'll have
if anything, it's going to be a Galacticos type of affair. It's either going to be Barcelona or Real Madrid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're going to get paid ridiculous amounts of money, have a say, or supposedly have a say on who you bring in to into the team, because I know PSG or the Champions League is one of the trophies that PSG are still trying to win. They've got some incredible players within the team, but I still think that potentially PSG is more of an ego's job as opposed to a team job. I know they've got Messi, and obviously we just had the discussion about Messi being the great team player, but you need all the players around him, and I just don't think, compared to some of the rest of the teams in Europe, that they have got what it takes.
As we say, it's one of those that you maybe get one, possibly 2 luxury players in a squad, don't you? At best, they've got Neymar, Mbappe, Messi. It's never going to work on the club stage, is it? Where you've got the best of the best playing for these other clubs, multi-nations, and it's not one against the other. But that being said, do you think that the fact that Mbappe may never come to the Premier League will lead to the same sort of arguments as the Messi-Ronaldo of Ronaldo's done it in the Premier League, which is quite proven to be harder to play in than a lot of the other European top 5 leagues?
To be honest, mate, I think he's going to have too much money to care. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
You mean, am I the greatest? I'm a billionaire, so I don't care. Yeah. No. Fair point.
Yeah, I genuinely don't. I don't think he's going to care. I do see him leaving PSG, but like I just mentioned, it is going to be to one of the Spanish clubs, your Barcelona's, your Real Madrid's. I don't think we will ever see him in the Premier League. I may be wrong, but I just don't think there's anyone that will be able to afford it. Even your like your Man Cities or your Man Uniteds. Definitely.
That is a segue nicely into Manchester United, actually. You're saying that. Avram Glazer has said today that he has been in Qatar the whole World Cup, speaking to some of the Saudis and some of the Qataris about buying his share of Manchester United. So we've got Manchester City, we've got Newcastle. We could now have Manchester United, who are really going to be pulling some big numbers in terms of financials, more so than what they were. Do you think that they could take over and we could see another big spending club? Well, they're already big spending, but bigger spending club from Manchester United if they get taken over by a Qatari or Saudi-backed consortium?
I wouldn't say it's impossible, because obviously we've already seen it.
Yep.
As you mentioned, Newcastle fairly recently. I think there was another Everton. I think Saudi-backed in some way, shape, or form. But it's not going to be impossible. At the end of the day, it's a business. If something's for sale and someone wants to pay for it, yeah, I reckon that they will. But I don't know. Just with Manchester United, I think the problems with Manchester United go deeper than the board, and no matter how much money you throw at it, they may see some success, but I don't see them rivaling Manchester City anytime soon. It's going to be at least a 2 or 3 season job before we see Manchester United start competing for the title or Champions League or anything like that again.
I mean, one of the things that does win you titles, as we've said before, is a decent goalkeeper. Now, the goalkeeper who won the World Cup does play in the Premier League. He used to play for Arsenal. He had one season where he sat on the bench for however long. He's now at Aston Villa, and you have to say, at first season at Villa, he was phenomenal. The team in front of him sort of fallen flat. Do you think this could lead to Martinez moving to one of the bigger clubs, so to speak, because of his World Cup credentials? Penalty shootout extraordinaire, you have to say, and made some vital saves to keep Argentina in the final and in the competition overall. But fantastic celebration, and I think we need to see that more with the Premier League.
Yeah. Yes. In all seriousness, I think if we go back to the episode where we talked about Martinez leaving, I think it was the right time for him, the wrong time for us.
Yeah.
Because obviously we had Bernd Leno was playing at the top of his game at that particular point. Martinez only got his break because of an injury through to Bernd Leno, but you have to say that after the injury to Bernd Leno was never the same again.
Yeah.
The next season, obviously, I think Mikel Arteta come out and couldn't guarantee him the first team football that he wanted.
Yep.
Decided to hang up the gloves with Arsenal, so to speak, and take on a challenge. Now, obviously, he decided that he wanted to move because he wanted to become Argentina's number one. Was very successful in the Copa America, and also we've seen how successful and how brilliant he can be, and now a World Cup winner, as crowned yesterday.
Yep.
Yes, I do think he will move to one of the bigger teams. For what's happened over the last 4 years or so, 4 years, 4 years. It definitely can't do him any harm. Obviously, I know Aston Villa aren't where they want to be at the moment, but you can't go wrong with him in the sticks or in between the sticks.
Yeah,
I would take it back in a heartbeat because I think he deserved the chance to play first team football for us. But would I take him back over Aaron Ramsdale? No, probably not.
I think Aaron Ramsdale's got the longevity in it. If you didn't have him and you still had Leno, it would be like, buy him back. What are you playing at? But yeah, I think Aston Villa are going to have a bit of a struggle to hold on to him. And equally, another player who graced Premier League has been phenomenal this season, actually been linked with Arsenal a number of times from what I recall reading over the last 6 months or so. Mr. McAllister from Brighton, the attacking midfielder, quality player, scored some absolute worldies this season, had a couple of worldies ruled out by VAR, and the Brighton boss has said we're going to try and tie him down to a big contract, but there is a lot of interest. The phone's been ringing off the hook since sort of the quarterfinals for him. Do you think we could see him possibly move to Arsenal, or if not one of the other more, say contender clubs, but one of the ones that are battling it out across Europe for a title, not necessarily staying in the Premier League? Still only a young man as well. That's the thing with him.
Yeah, I don't know where I sit with this one. To be honest, I don't think he would come to us, given the transfer rumours that I've seen recently for us and the number of players that we've got already in his position. But again, if the phone's been kind of ringing off the hook, I suppose you have to take those offers seriously.
Yep.
Because I do you kind of stick with the club on a contract and what's the phrase I'm trying to think of? Apply your trade for a couple more seasons, and then look to get your big move, or do you potentially run the risk of going to, say, someone like a Chelsea or Manchester United and sitting on the bench, like we've seen with so many of these other big prospects? With Zaha, I think it's a perfect example of that. A phenomenal couple of seasons with Crystal Palace, went to Manchester United, didn't really work out, ended up back at Manchester United. So I think possibly... But there's every potential. There's every potential for him to move. 100%. Yeah, every potential.
And in fact, you mentioned Chelsea there, didn't you? Which I think is quite interesting, because Graham Potter is after sort of trying to save his job, I think, at the minute. He's certainly firefighting, or he was before the World Cup. And he's a man who brought in McAllister. So I think his performances may be able to give Potter the leverage he needs over Bowie to say, go and get him. He's quality. He's won the World Cup. He was pivotal in their games. He was getting in the team over some of the bigger names. Let's get him while he's going to be not cheap, but relatively cheap, because the move after this, he isn't going to be. So that's an interesting one. But another transfer rumour, because it is that time of year where we get the transfers, isn't it? Coming up the 1st of January. Bukayo Saka. Pep has said, I want him. I think he's a quality player, and I think he would add to our squad. And the fact that Mahrez and Bernardo Silva could be leaving, are you worried at all that Saka could be going to Manchester City?
You're always worried, aren't you? Whenever we get to this sort of time of year. Again, from what I've just said, every move is possible if the right price comes along or whatever. But I did read something just before the start of the World Cup just to say that there is a potential that the contract situation between Arsenal and Saka was close to being done before the start of the World Cup.
Yep.
But obviously nothing's official until he's actually signed it. So I know Saka's been touted as well with Liverpool, or his name's been banded around with Liverpool as well. But I can't see him going at the current time.
Yep.
Obviously, we're sitting 4 points clear at the top of the league at the moment. We've got possibly one of the best chances we've had in a long while to go on and win the Premier League. Obviously, I know with the injury to Gabriel Jesus during the course of the World Cup has possibly damaged it a little bit, but we have the transfer window coming up very shortly. I think there's only one game before the start of the Christmas period. Sorry, one game before the start of the transfer window, which is against West Ham. So it may be the case that even if we were to lose that game, we're still clear by 1 point, obviously depending on Manchester City's result as well. So I think hopefully by the return of the Premier League, we should see this business kind of sewn up. Hopefully that we won't have to worry about that one. But until we see that signature on the paper, there's every possibility he's going.
Definitely. I think you sum that one up nicely with the fact that you are doing well in the league at the minute. Had it been last season or possibly the season before where you were lagging down a little bit, I think it's a no-brainer move. But the fact that you're actually contending and he's the main man at Arsenal, isn't he? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or one of the grass isn't always greener. You have to say, when you look at it, Manchester City coming in for you, you have to go, oh, well, some of the players you're going to be playing with, I could learn a lot from them. Would we win everything? Possibly. But yeah, if he's happy and say you're in the lead at the minute, hopefully they can tie him down to a contract. I think the only plus point of him leaving would be it's going to be over 100 million. It has to be.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could buy Southampton for that. So I mean, just get a feeder club in the Premier League. Who knows? So that's all well and good. But yeah, the Premier League does kick back off in 6 days, so not very long at all. And the first game back for us is you, and for you is us. So, I mean, shall we get into the predictions?
Yes.
Well, for those of you who've been watching for a little while, we have a new screen. We have some predictions. So I will try and update it as much as possible. It's probably not going to happen every week because I will forget. But Arsenal are the home team, so I'll let you take the lead on it. But before you do, I think we need a recap of the points from the last prediction we made.
Yes. So we met just before the semi-final games. Croatia versus Argentina and Morocco versus France.
Yep.
You had 2-1 to Croatia.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 1-1 to Argentina. 1-1 and Argentina to win on penalties. It was a resounding 3-0 win to Argentina. We couldn't have been more wrong. So it's 0 points each for us there. Morocco versus France. You had 1-0 to Morocco. I had 2-1 to France.
Yep. So
that is 1 point to me and 0 points to you. So I've got to be honest, mate. We didn't do too well in the World Cup predictions. But
did you tweet out a prediction for the final?
No, I didn't, and it's annoying because I said to Em, and she can vouch for me for this, Argentina to win on penalties, but it doesn't make a difference. Well, what did you go for in your prediction?
I tweeted out 3-3 with Argentina to win on penalties, so that's 800 points to me. I think is correct. With an Mbappe hat trick.
Right, let me.
No, if I'm honest, I didn't. But if I did tweet, I probably would have gone the way of France. The way they were playing, they just seemed to die a death that first sort of 55 minutes, didn't they? I know they had a bug going around their camp allegedly. Some would say some bad lasagna, if you get that, if you get that reference. But so not particularly good on the World Cup. But something we do know more about is West Ham and Arsenal. So hopefully this week we will be a bit more on the ball with what's going on.
Yes. I don't know how I sit with this one because we had a bit of a pre-season tour of I want to say Dubai. Yeah, but it was Dubai. It was the Dubai Super Cup where we played. I think it was like AC Milan. I can't remember who the other one was, and Juventus.
Yeah.
The two games that we played and won quite comfortably. And I'm really happy because obviously it was the players that were still at home, and it was right. So it was 3-0 against Lyon, 2-1 against AC Milan, and then a 2-0 loss against Juventus. Now, obviously, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we have got Gabriel Jesus out at the moment with had surgery on his knee for an injury that he picked up during the World Cup.
Yep.
Some are saying it was actually just before, so that does leave us a little bit light with our attacking options. However, I think one thing that we've seen from not only this season, from this season, and not only this this little spell that we've had out in Dubai, that there are other people that chip in with the goals.
Yep.
So Martin Ødegaard, Reece Nelson, I know he's just picked up an injury, but we have got other players on the pitch that can score goals. So we haven't got this over-reliance on Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah can score goals. But I think it depends on whether Saliba, I know he didn't feature during the World Cup, but will he jump straight back into playing for us, or is he going to take a bit of a break, obviously, from going to the final with France? So obviously he would have been training and all this sort of stuff. That remains to be seen. But I think, and I'm just going to draw reference back to what you said just before the start of the World Cup, is this break going to do us some damage in terms of kind of derailing our momentum? I think potentially, until we've got everyone back, it could be a bit of an issue. But I would happily take a draw in this game, and and I'm going to go for 2-2.
Fair enough. I think the our predictions of obviously going to the World Cup and players coming back injured, which some of them have, is correct. But in the players that went and didn't play, they were still training. They were still doing stuff. They still got some, like Martinelli, got some minutes in the World Cup. So in that sense, it's almost like a warm weather training camp. It's a rehabilitation. It's that keeping up the fitness with a change of stuff. But we also had a few games. We struggled from a 2-0 down to win 4-2 against Cambridge United. We then went to Italy and gave Udinese a bit of a tonking 3-1. And on Saturday we played Fulham, which I thought was a bit of a strange one, playing Premier League opposition a week before you go back. I know you want to know where you are up to speed, but something happened in that game, which isn't good for us. A former West Ham player, Issa Diop, injured our only striker, Mr. Scamacca, who had scored a couple in the previous game. So leaves us with just being reliant on Mikel Antonio again, which is not great. Moyes has allegedly got 3 or 4 games to save his job, which is only right because we look like we're in a relegation scrap. And although we're being linked with Wan-Bissaka and I think a couple of players like that on loan, it's not looking too positive. If you're struggling to keep Cambridge United out, then that's where the problem is. I know Naif Agurd played really well for Morocco, but he's now out injured again. So I'm not as confident as you are at us scoring. I think you will, definitely. And I'm going to go 2-1 to Arsenal.
Okay.
I feel like we will concede, but we've not got enough about us to pull ourselves back into the game. And the fact that we're at your place, everyone's going to be excited. Day after Christmas. It's been a long time coming since we've seen some football at home. And yeah, I think it'll be a step too far for West Ham. But we do have... I did muck it up a little bit because there's a game on the 30th of December. So we've got Brentford.
Is this the League Cup?
I don't think so. I think this is a Premier League game. It may well be... No, it's a Premier League game. So West Ham host Brentford. I don't know if Arsenal have got one. Arsenal fixtures. Sorry, technical difficulty.
We got Brighton
You got Brighton on the 31st. So shall we predict them as well? Because we're going to have a little break next week just because obviously it's Christmas and we'll give everyone a little time off. So being as West Ham are first, I think Brentford have got Tottenham on Boxing Day, and Brentford are one of those teams, it depends on what way the wind's blowing. They could blow your way, they could not. They're almost a little bit like Southampton. But I think being down in the dumps, hopefully we'll have a Gerd back and Scamacca. With a game having to be won, I'm going to go 2-2 in that game. I think we'll get a point, but I think we'll make some silly mistakes, but we will garner a point from that game.
Okay, I'm going to go slightly different on this one. I know, obviously, Ivan Toney had all those issues about, or
betting,
alleged issues, shall we say, for betting and all that sort of stuff. But you got to say that Brentford finished with a bang, I think, just before the World Cup. I think with kind of like a bit of a point to prove to Gareth Southgate for not picking him. Yeah. Obviously, I know we had that discussion prior to the World Cup squad announcement, where obviously you'd raised this point, which was confirmed literally a few days later. But I still think Brentford are going to be in the mix a bit this season. Obviously, they will blow hot and cold throughout the course of the season, but I do think they'll be up there towards the end of the season. I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to Brentford on that one.
Okay. Yes, I think it's all about, isn't it, what teams can start fast pace and pick up, because that first game of the season is usually a little bit of a test in the water, but I think it could be interesting, certainly.
So the next game is Brighton versus Arsenal. Arsenal travelling to the Amex. Again, I don't know how to sit on this one, because I think it depends on. I think it's going to very much depend on how we play against you boys.
Yep.
I think if we get a draw against you, then we have to come out and win this one, or in order to keep our title hopes alive. I would like to think that we could march on, and if we were to beat you guys, then obviously we could take a draw on this one. But does the lack of a striker, I don't want to sound too negative on Eddie Nketiah, because he scored some brilliant goals for us, but I do worry.
You don't want to rely on him week in, week out, do you?
Yeah. I am going to go for... Do you know what? I'm going to be positive on this one. I'm going to go to 2-1 to Arsenal on this one.
I don't think you're too far off. Brighton have been really good this season. But I think, obviously, Moise Caicedo, one of their main boys, has been to the World Cup, played a lot of minutes. McAllister, again, played a lot of minutes. He may be back for this one, given a week's rest. I don't think he'll make the first game. Maybe surprised. But I think at that point, everyone will be like, oh, he's gonna pull the strings, he's gonna dominate, he's gonna do this, he's gonna do that. And if anything, you're just gonna man mark him out the game. So obviously some tired legs, having played the most football. I'm gonna go with Arsenal to win that one 3-1. I think Nketiah could surprise you. You know, I know he's not a 20 goal a season striker. You're not going to win the Premier League with him up top, but certainly I think in the way you're playing, he would get 10 goals a season without a problem. But say it's just a case of can he do what Jesus was doing, which is pulling that defender wide to give room to those other players, and cropping up with the assist. Time will tell, I suppose. I mean, how long's Jesus out for?
Supposedly 3 months. So that's quite a few fixtures that he's potentially going to miss.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's if Arsenal really want to go and become title winners again, that's a case of, as soon as that happened and they got a phone call to say, actually, this is quite bad, they would have been looking around saying, okay, who can we get through the door on the 1st of January?
Yep.
Even if it's a short-term option. Do you know what I mean? God, that's a derailment, isn't it? That's the sort of thing we spoke about before the World Cup started.
Yep.
But so, here's the thing. We mentioned, well, my prediction of Newcastle being the club that's going to capitalise most, because their players are going to be completely rested as such.
Mm-hmm.
They had 4 players going, so the least out of the top 6 teams, or top 7 teams if you include them in that.
Callum Wilson didn't get a game.
Callum Wilson didn't. He played 20 minutes?
Yeah,
I think. So you think for him that's a warm weather training camp? Fantastic. I don't know who else went for them, but I don't think any of them played particularly a lot. That's a big squad, a well rested squad, with Alexander Isak coming back into play. From what I understand, quite early on. Are you concerned that they're going to charge up the table and take you on?
Yes, because I know obviously we've got Manchester City and Spurs as well.
Yeah.
Just below them. Just below us. But yeah, I mean, Newcastle were putting a shift in right from the very start, and they've made some amazing appointments in terms of transfers over the last 2 windows. I think from the January transfer window last year, and also the summer transfer window, and obviously that Alexander Isak has hit the ground running. I think he picked up an injury.
Did you?
Towards the latter stages leading into the World Cup. Well, obviously that's where Callum Wilson got his opportunity. But yeah, I mean, again, with how Eddie Howe has got them playing, 100%, they've got every right to be where they are at the moment. They play some fantastic football. But again, I know obviously they've got players that would be well rested. Obviously, Trippier was another one that went from the England camp, but obviously we got eliminated a couple of weeks ago now. So obviously would have had a little bit of time to rest and recuperate. But I know obviously we had Luke Shaw and Kyle Walker obviously filling his shoes. So yes. In answer to your question, that they can be a threat this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think. In fact, I'm going to choose my words carefully here because obviously we've seen it happen with Leicester, but I don't think they've got enough to mount a title challenge. I may be proved wrong, and I'll be happy to be proved wrong at the end of the season if they do go close. But I think the other teams around them are possibly a little bit further ahead.
Yeah.
But again, you've got the January transfer window, so it just depends on who they recruit, if anyone, in January.
Yeah, no, I think you are right. And on that note, I mean, is there a particular player that you've seen linked with Arsenal? Because obviously, over the World Cup, there's been all sorts of transfer rumours flying about who's going to sign who and who's interested in who. And although we don't like to speculate too much because it's always hard not to get excited, but is there anyone that particularly, or a rumour that you've seen that you go, yeah, I wouldn't mind that move, actually. I wouldn't mind that one.
To be honest, I've only really seen one name that's kind of been bandied about, and I can't remember for the life of me what his name is. I don't know how to pronounce. I want to say something like Mudryk or something.
Right.
I think he currently plays out in Germany, and he was a player that we were heavily linked with in the summer transfer window. But they were touting ridiculous sums of money for him, and now obviously he's wearing his or playing his contract down. And I think there has been an agreement reached in principle. I don't know how true this is or not. Obviously, this is just the power of social media. But apparently, representatives have been met at the Emirates, or so there is every possibility it could have happened, and we need to wait for the January transfer window to come. But that is the only real name that I've seen kind of bandied around. And I think Isco is another one.
Yep.
That has been bandied around, and also I can never pronounce his name. Vlahovic.
Yeah,
Juventus, the guy that went to Juventus. Yeah. He's another name that I've seen kind of bandied around, certainly since the injury to Gabriel Jesus. But again, I'm not sure if this is one of these ones where we just kind of have to suck it and see for the next couple of months, or whether we push that panic button, because as soon as Jesus becomes fit again, obviously he's going to get thrust back into the team. But I don't know.
It's a hard one.
I think we do. I do think that we need to make a couple of signings to bulk out our squad with quality, because I think that's where we do lack is squad depth. We've got the quality in the first 11, but it's obviously pushing that further afield. So, I'm interested to see what happens in the January transfer window.
I mean, from a West Ham perspective, we've already signed one geezer, young guy from Brazil, defender. And the fact that we're in a relegation scrap and we've bought one that's going into the academy for the future, I think it's going to be a few of the signings that we've made with that. He'll go into the academy for 2 years and then we'll be sold to some obscure European team, never to be heard from again, which is a shame, really. But there are two that I've read recently that have excited me. One that we were linked with in the summer before we got Skamaka, the Seville striker who plays for Morocco, El Nassiri. Looked good in the World Cup. I say on the older side, he would be a more experienced striker. He's 27, so coming should be in the peak of his career. But you think you're going to get 3 seasons out of him, decent, and then some players wobble at 30. But the other one, which I've seen, which I'm quite excited about, because Soufal allegedly is going to be leaving which I'm a little bit frustrated with. But Aaron Wan-Bissaka, he's played 2 minutes under what's his face at Man United, and we've been linked with a loan move for him. I think the fact that it would only leave us with one right back, he's a good right back. He defends well. That's what we need. Bringing him on loan, I think, is a win-win all round. Either it does well when we sign him in the summer, or it doesn't quite work out and he goes back to Manchester United, or he plays out of his skin and he gets back in the United squad or something like that. But for us, if he's playing well, that's winning. So I'd quite like to see us bring him in. But I mean, is there anything else that you've got this week for news or talking points or anything like that?
No, not really. I mean, it's just another congratulations to Messi and the Argentina team for winning the World Cup. I am very much looking forward to the Christmas break. Spending a bit of time with the family. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's watched our podcast over the course of this season. For people that have recently joined the FDT-TV family, welcome. Thank you so much for sticking with us on a week-by-week basis. And as Ian said earlier, if you have enjoyed the content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Help us increase our subscribers. It'll be very much appreciated. And we'll have some newer and better content coming out in the new year.
Yep. But say, until then, we wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we'll see you in the new year.
Thanks very much.
Goodbye.